Oh,
All right, we'll get started. So welcome everybody for day 2 of our hands-on building session where we're going to be we created segments in Data Cloud last session, and now we've synced them into Marketing Cloud. And now we're going to do some unification of that data in Marketing Cloud just to align with our CRM fields, and then create some custom journeys and content to send out those messages. So let me just give a little bit of context. Let me share my screen, just a background of where we are to this day for those who may have missed the session last week. Let me go to this deck just so we can talk about where we are. Okay, so our use case is Cervelo Bank has created this mobile app, and the application signups and users are lower than expected. When they dig into the reasons why, they notice one of the, within the prospect group, there's a big bottleneck where people have signed up, but they haven't linked their account, their bank. Once they do link their account, or their bank, they usually move right ahead and start making a lot of trades. So we worked in Data Cloud last session to create some segments that would identify these no bank linkers in Data Cloud and sync them over to Marketing Cloud. So let's just quickly take a look at one of the segments that we built last time in Data Cloud. So you can see that we've got a segment here. This is based off of the unified individual. We created two, one just on the generic individual and one on the unified individual. You can see the filters where the account needed to have been created, and that bank link is either false or has no value. And then we published those segments. They were brought down into the Marketing Cloud environment. We took a quick look at those two different segments. And now we're going to want to create a query to feed these segments into a journey, use the different personalization points to create one-to-one messaging and different journey paths. Before we feed them into the journey, though, what we're going to want to do is take a look at how we can do some unification on the Marketing Cloud side, especially on the individual segment based on the individual, not the unified, to see if we can improve upon in that segment. So let me just go to that segment real quick. One area that we're going to want to try to focus on is the subscriber key that we looked at last session, which is not a contact ID. So we're going to look to see if we can find a way to replace this, subscriber key that doesn't align with our subscriber key nomenclature with a subscriber key based on a contact ID in the Salesforce CRM environment. So I'm going to stop sharing. We've got Debbie, who is going to be volunteering today as our builder. We're going to be primarily working in the Marketing Cloud environment. So thank you, Debbie, for volunteering. Do you want to give us a quick, I know you've built with us before. Do you want to give us a quick background of your experience in Marketing Cloud and Data Cloud?
Oh, sure. Thank you. So I am just learning Data Cloud through the sessions, and Marketing Cloud. I worked with a company for about 15 months in Marketing Cloud as an email specialist. So thanks for this opportunity to keep learning the new Data Cloud.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you for volunteering. And Debbie, if you want to share your screen whenever you're ready. We just gave Debbie access to Marketing Cloud yesterday, so thank you for logging in this morning. And she also has access to, as she built with us earlier on in the sessions, she has access to our Data Cloud environment as well.
Okay. Just finishing up my security questions real quick, and I'll be
no problem.
right in there.
And if anybody is interested in building, we have future sessions. We have about, I think, 3 more hands-on building sessions please drop your email and first name, last name in the chat, and we will add you to the list for building in future sessions. Got other builders joining. Lakshmi has built with us before, 2 sessions. Thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks for joining.
Okay, so I just shared my screen.
All right. Perfect. All right, Marketing Cloud, fantastic. Okay, so let's, what we're gonna do, Debbie, is we're gonna go navigate to the segments, the data extensions that we had brought over from the Data Cloud environment. So we're gonna go to Email Studio. And then in the Subscribers tab at the top, yep, we're gonna go to Data Extension. And then if you go down to the bottom, which says Shared Items, and if there's a little plus sign, let's see at the very, yep, there you go. And then we want to go to Shared Data Extensions and then Customer 360 Segments. So that's the folder that Data Cloud populates in Marketing Cloud. And so from the session last week, we created 2 segments, Bootcamp Individual and Bootcamp Unified Individual. So let's click into either one of those. And then let's duplicate this browser tab. We'll, so if you go to your browser tab in the upper right corner where it says Email Marketing Cloud, then just hit your, if you're a PC user and you have a right click on the mouse, we're just going to duplicate that tab.
Meetings in the way. Okay.
Oh, right, the Zoom. I think if you right click on it, if you're a PC, there you go. And then you hit duplicate. Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect. So yeah, let's open up, I think you have the individual in one tab. Let's open up the unified in the other. Perfect. Okay, excellent. And let's go back to the tab before with the individual, and let's click into that blue link so we can see the details. And let's go into the records tab right to the right of properties. Okay. And so this is what we reviewed last week. The issue being that subscriber key is, because this is not unified, this is data coming directly from the mobile app. It's not combined with the Salesforce CRM data, the enterprise data, the other sources that we have. We do not have that contact key, contact ID as a subscriber key. And that is our preference. That's what our model is used for in this use case. Salesforce CRM is our database of record, and we would prefer to have either a contact ID or a lead ID. So if you go to the second tab, let's pull up the unified individual. And if we click on that, yep. And then if we click on the records, so this looks a little bit better. We're seeing the contact IDs here, the 003 numbers. This is the preferred. We're going to try to, our preferred model. So what we want to do today is see if we can use a query in Marketing Cloud to fix the first segment, the individual segment. So let's go back to that tab with the individual. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to create a query in Query Studio that uses this source data. And we're going to want to compare this data to data in our contact synchronized data extension that's coming from Salesforce CRM. If we find a match, primarily probably going to be using the email address, then we're going to use that contact ID from the Salesforce CRM environment and replace the subscriber key. Okay, so to do this, let's open up another tab, and we're going to go into Query Studio. And let me just drop this in the channel. for all of you who do not have Query Studio, it is a must. It's free. An amazing, amazing resource. Allows you to do what we're going to do today, play around with some different queries without creating a data extension and all of that. So fantastic. So Debbie, if you go to the blue cloud in the upper left-hand corner.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can X out that Explore Intelligence Report notice. I think that'll stay. Yeah, there you go. And then under App Exchange, all the way over there on the right. So it's right next to the Einstein and the platform. It's the icons one layer down. There you go. Yep. And then click on Query Studio.
Oh, I have it. Okay, good.
Okay, fantastic. Debbie, have you used Query Studio before?
No, so this is fun.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so we're going to create a query. So the basics of query building, there's three parts. There's a select statement. So if you write select all in caps at the top, and then hit return a couple of times. And the second part is a from all caps, and then a couple returns. And then the last is the where. Okay, the basics of any query are just those three sections. So we're going to start with the first section, which is our from. Where are we pulling this data from? So our data is going to be pulled from this individual data extension, not the unified individual. We might do that a little bit later, but we're going to start with the individual. Yep, so you can copy the name. It's a long one. So if that doesn't copy, see up in the little breadcrumbs at the top?
Yeah.
Yep, you could probably copy it right there at the end of there. You might have to highlight it. Yeah, it's a little bit wonky. You might have to start on the left and highlight right. Yeah, yeah. Nice. Perfect.
Almost there.
So finicky.
Yeah, I'll add that part. Oh, there we go.
Nice. Perfect. All right, so that's where our data is coming from. We're going to add a little bit more to that data in a second. Okay, and our where clause. Because there's 48 records in this data set, we're going to try to make it a little bit simpler on our end. And we're going to pick one of those records that we know has a contact in our CRM environment. So if you go back to that data extension, the individual data extension, and if you, let's see the first record is my email address. We're going to want to find me, but let's use that one. So what we're going to do to identify my my record is not the email address, but let's use the ID. So if you go to the properties tab, or you could, yes, so you can copy the ID there. Yeah. Yep. And let's bring that over to the where clause. And then you can hit return.
Yep.
Yep. And then let's do an equals. And then a single quote. Perfect. Let's go back to the data extension. And then I think as you sorted by the ID, I think if you scroll down, we should be able to find me somewhere in here by my email address. So if you scroll down a little bit, there I am right there. It's like I'm like the 7th or 8th record up. Yep. So if you want to grab that ID, the mobile app ID for that record, yeah, perfect. And we'll go drop that in the query between those two quotes. Okay, fantastic. And then in the select statement, let's output a couple of variables. So if you go up to the select and hit return, start on the next line. Let's go back to the data extension. Let's output the subscriber key. So you can grab that subscriber key field, just subscriber key itself.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll, or you can, sometimes the pasting, the copying doesn't work. Or you can just type in subscriber key. Cool, let's hit return. Let's do a comma.
Oh, right here.
And yeah,
Or
yep.
after.
And then we'll do, that's perfect. And then do an ID. We're going to output the ID as well.
Do you put a space before that?
You can, or it's up to you. Okay, let's hit return. Let's add another comma. We're just adding different fields that we want to output here. If you go back to the data extension, we want to include like the first name field. Yep.
Oops. That...
You hit Control Z, it might reverse what you just did.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
It's not copying from there. Yeah, so you can just type in first name. If you go to the properties tab, it'll be a little bit more consistent. We can do that for the next variable. Perfect. Okay. Let's go back. We need to add one more variable. If you go back to the tab, and then if you click on the properties tab, they're a little bit easier to copy from there. Let's copy the email address. Perfect. Okay, so the reason why I had to do the commas seems kind of weird is whenever you're building queries, it's a nice little tip. You never forget each line needs to end with a comma. If you start the second line with a comma, you'll never have to worry about missing the comma at the end. So it's just a little way of doing it. Anyways, so let's run this. This should give us the data for just that one record. And let's see, hopefully we don't get any errors. This is going to like narrow our data set just to this one record. Okay, fantastic. So we've got the subscriber key that we do not want. We're going to try to look to replace that. And we've got, my name and my email address that validates the data, right? So we don't have to create we have to create the query. You don't have to create a data extension. You can easily visualize the data in Query Studio just by clicking run. Super fun, super easy. Okay, so we've got this data. Now what we want to do is we want to find a way to connect this to our contact data coming from Salesforce CRM to say, hey, is there a record that has an email address like tzider@mycervelo.com? If there is, let's use that contact ID as the subscriber key versus this mobile app GUID number. So let's create another tab or duplicate this tab. We're going to go to our synchronized data extensions. Debbie, in your experience, in Marketing Cloud, did you use synchronized data extensions or the data coming in from Salesforce CRM, or was it a standalone Marketing Cloud environment?
Yeah, we had synchronized.
All right. Well, we'll let you navigate to that. It should be under the same, maybe the similar location. So I think if you want, well, actually, I think you can go under. Yeah, you can go under. Yeah, let's go through Email Studio. I think you can go through Email Studio to get the synchronized data extension. I typically go through Contact Builder, but I think you can go through Email Studio. So let's try that.
I think she can see Salesforce DS, right?
Perfect. Awesome. Excellent.
Go back.
Okay, yeah, so these are all the synchronized data extensions that we've brought over for all those different objects. And let's click into contact _ Salesforce. Okay, So this is the database that we want to join, connect to our individual segment. So let's copy this contact Salesforce. And then we're going to bring that over to our Query Studio. Query.
Let's see. Yeah.
And then you can paste that. Yeah, anywhere on that query is fine. And I'm going to drop in the channel this little query cheat sheet. So on the hands-on SFMC site, we have this, you see this all over the community, but there's these little query cheat sheets. So if you can pull that up. What we're going to do is use this query cheat sheet to determine how we want to join these two databases or connect these two databases. And there's this SQL join.
I just see JB's messages and not yours. I'm not sure why yours are not popping in.
Yeah, I'm JB too. So it should be that last one.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just looking at the name.
Okay, perfect. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's a SQL joins, and scroll down just a little bit more. There's a SQL joins visualization chart. Yeah, this is handy, and this isn't the only one out there. There's plenty of these different ones out here. But I always refer this when you're connecting to databases, when you're doing your joins in query, just remember to remind yourself, which is the best way to do this. Okay, so you've got a bunch of different visuals here. You've got your data on the left, your A data, which is our individual segment. You've got your B data, which is our contact data extension. And we want to choose the query Debbie, which circles do you think would be the one that you think we want to use in this case? We want it's a part where we want to match where A and B are records exist both in A and B.
Let's see. This one?
Yeah, I like that one. Let's go with that one. So that is when we look at the from statement, what does the syntax say around the join? What type of join is it?
Left join.
Perfect. Let's go back to your query in Query Studio. And then right below line 7, we're going to write your join. Yep. And then I think if you want to do a space between the two. So left space join.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. And then you want to take your contact Salesforce data extension. You want to cut that from line 14. You can paste that after your left join. That is your new data. That's your second database, basically. Oh, well, you can just, you don't need a comma after that. You can keep it, for this syntax, we'll keep it all in the same line. So if you bring that back up, yep, and you can do the space there, perfect. All right, so now we're gonna left join these two data extensions, and now we need to use a on statement. And the on statement is the syntax to determine how are these two data extensions going to connect. So in order to do an on statement, we need to label both. Now that we've got two different sources in this query, we have to label each of them. So we're going to go back to line 7. At the very end of line 7, we need to label this data extension. Yes, if you just space there, we're going to do a capital AS or as. And then we're going to name this as I, right? I, it's in the individual segment. This is simple. And then same thing for the contact underscore Salesforce. Let's do an as at the end of line 9.
It went wonky. Okay.
So at the end of line 9, yep. Okay, perfect. And then we'll call this C because it's contact. Perfect. Now we can do our on statements. We're going to keep the on the same line as line 9. So you can either just type on or bring that up. Yeah, either way. Perfect. All right. So now we need to find, okay, what's going to be how are these two data extensions going to match? And so we've got on our individual segment, I think we talked about, we've got the email address is the one way they're going to be able to make that connection. So we need to go find the field name on the individual data extension, which is for email address. And you've got that right there. We'll just copy that. Okay, and then what we want to do before email address to just determine where that field is coming from, we want to do an I period, and that is coming from the I data extension. And then after email address, let's do an equal sign. And then we need to find in the contact synchronized data extension, what is the field that they use for email address? I think that's your 4th tab is the contact synchronized data extension. So if you go to your 4th browser tab, two more tabs over. Yep, perfect. And the easiest way to see it, and you could sort of see there's a couple there that say email. The best way I think to do is to click on the records. You can actually see the data. Yep. And then you can sort of see which field looks like it has an email address syntax. Yep, email, yep. If you can copy that, great. And be temperamental. And let's paste it in there. Perfect. And then that one's going to be, which letter is going to be on that one? Not I, but
C.
Perfect. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. So now we've got these two databases joined. Now we've got this bigger database that we can now output our values if we see a match. So you can delete line 14, that contact underscore Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. You can delete the line, the empty line on line 8. We'll bring these two records right next to it. Perfect. And now, since we've made that join, let's output values for that subscriber key that's going to be an improved subscriber key. So what we need to now find is, if we've got that match, we want to use the field on the contact synchronized data extension that outputs the contact ID. So which field it looks like it outputs that 003 number. If you go back to the contact synchronized data extension, so now contact key is not a field you can actually use. It's sort of a default field that gets populated for synchronized data extension. So let's try to see if we can find another field. Yes, so ID, that looks right. And that is, I think, Debbie, if you've had that exposure with synchronized data extensions for objects, the ID field of that object is always named ID. So an account ID, the 005 number is an ID, the lead ID, 00Q is the ID field, but it's always good to check that. Okay, so let's take that ID field and let's, on line 2, let's hit return. After subscriber key, perfect. And then let's type in c.id. And then let's put a comma before C. Okay. And then after that's do an as. And let's name that subscriber key. Okay. And then on line 2, let's put an I dot before that subscriber key. Yep. And then for the as, let's name that I subscriber key, just so that we know that this came from the individual. So just the letter I and then subscriber key. Yeah. Perfect. For line 4, sorry?
Oh, just like this, or am I missing the I?
Nope. Nope, that's perfect. And then on line 4, let's do an I right before the ID, so an I dot. Now that we've got 2 different databases, we have to detail every single one of our select statements with either an I or a C. Let's do an I dot first name. After first name, let's hit return. I want to add a new field. Okay, let's do a comma. C dot. Now let's go find the field in the contact synchronized data extension that represents first name. You might have to scroll over too. There we go, first name, perfect. And then let's name this as C first name. Perfect. What this is doing is that we're gonna be able to compare the first name variable from what we receive from Data Cloud to what we're seeing in Salesforce CRM. And our primary goal is to swap out the subscriber key for that contact ID. But as just wanted to give another example, you can just validate other data points. If Salesforce CRM is being refreshed, you know how the Salesforce synchronized data extensions, they come down every 15 minutes. Data Cloud could be an hour. So the CRM data could be a little bit more fresher. So just another way of, unifying and validating that data. Okay, the only thing I think we need to, let's run this just so we can get this error. It'll be good just to get an error message. Okay. There's an ambiguous column named ID. And so this, on line 13, we need to add an I dot on there. That's why that worked before, but now that we've got that separated, it didn't know, because there's an ID in both fields, it didn't know which ID to pull from. So let's try running that again. So when it's spooling, that means there's no errors, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's take a look at this data. So one thing to note right off the bat is that this is a test account. So I've got quite a few contact records, so you can see that. But let's take a look at this data, looking pretty good. So we've got the old subscriber key, which is that, fluid. And now we have this much improved subscriber key and actual contact ID. So that's pretty fantastic. We've got that ID being passed, which we might keep just so that we have it as a source of record. And then we can also see that the first name and the C first name are different. And again, this is a test account, but it's just kind of helpful to know that, you might want to use the contact first name as a variable. So not only the subscriber key, but those individual personalization points as well. there. And then I think that has the email. So if you scroll over a little bit, I think it's the email address should all be the same because it's the same, that's what it's doing the matching on. So there you go. There's a way where we can modify our data that we're going to be sending off to our journey, replacing that sort of not helpful subscriber key with a contact ID from the Salesforce CRM environment. Before we move over to perfecting this with the unified segment, just wanted to check to see if there are any questions from anybody in the channel before we go. And I'm just going to do a slight variation of this using the unified segment to perfect the data that we're going to look to send to the journeys. Any questions from anybody? Okay, throw them in the chat if you have a question. Oh, why don't in the unified individual extension? That is a good question, and I think we're going to cover that in a future session, Lakshmi. Great question. We're digging into that ourselves. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is, now that we've got this logic figured out, we're going to want to modify it and focus our attention to the unified segment, because that's the first segment that we want to send through the journeys. We now have an ability to do the individual as well, but that's really secondary to the unified. But it was helpful because the unified does not have a, let's ask this question: how do we ensure the journeys can be real time if the subscriber key swap happens, possibly using an automation? That's a good point. The good thing about the real time is that now, I think you've noticed in the release that just came out, automations now can run as quickly as 15 minutes. So it's not real time, but it's pretty close. So A, that's an improvement there. B, the challenge that we have in this model is that we are unifying the best that we can in the Data Cloud environment. That's what the unified segment is providing, is that unification to get that subscriber key being that contact ID. What we're working through on this exercise is that group outside of the unification. You're never going to have 100% unification. Sometimes 50% might be, even the best that you can get. So we're trying to work on that outer segment to see if we can unify in Marketing Cloud. So to your point, yes, if we can do it in Data Cloud, that would be preference, but this is sort of giving you options when you don't have, you can't unify your entire audience in Data Cloud. Great question. Okay, so Debbie, what we're going to do now is we're going to modify this query to, instead of the data coming from the individual data extension, we want it to come from the unified data extension. So how would you change this query to have it come from the unified?
Okay, so this one we would change to the unified.
Correct. Perfect. Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, that's all that needs to happen. And then what we're going to do as we're preparing for our journey is there's a couple of fields that we wanted to add that are on the unified data extension. That is account number and account created date. So can you add to the select statement those two variables from the unified data extension? It could be in any order on this. It doesn't have to be. Okay. It's your decide. You decide where you want to put them.
Oops, this one. Oh,
you right. Go to the properties tab. The properties tab will give you a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, account number, and was there anything else that you said?
Account created date, please.
Oh, I missed that R.
Perfect. Okay, and then Debbie, which first name would you like to have in here? If you were going to send out this, would you prefer it from the contact, or do you think that the unified individual would be preference? It is your call on whichever one. We're going to want to delete one of those, so we don't have both of them.
Um, let's see.
It should be the
Um,
same,
well,
right? So it's the same field in both of them. But when you look at the data down below, you can see first name and then which comes from the unified, and then
yeah,
the contact first name. Which one would you prefer, the contact first name or the unified?
the unified.
Okay, so if you delete line 8, perfect, and then you can delete that space. Okay, and then we probably don't need the I subscriber key, right? That I subscriber key is not, we're not using that. We're using the CID instead, so we can delete that line. And then now that that CID is the first line, you do not need a comma to start out that line 2. You can delete that comma. Perfect. And then the last part is we can modify this where clause. We are going to open this up to the entire segment. So let's use logic where an email address is not null. So what we want to do in line 13 is let's delete line 13. We're going to replace it with a different line. Okay. And then let's use I.email address. Perfect. And then we're going to use the syntax all caps, space, after email address.
Oh,
No, you're
whoops.
good with email address was perfect. Yep. So if you hit space, and we're going to do all caps of is space is space not.
Oh, and with the
Oops, sorry.
space.
Is not null. All caps and no spaces, or and so yep, or and spaces. Sorry. So space between the is and the not and the null. Perfect. And then you can get rid of the is safe. So we want to have the line, the email address is not null. So you can get rid of the is safe part.
Get rid of the space here.
You can
Oh,
get rid of the is safe, ISSAFE. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Perfect. And then we just need to add a couple of different variable names on. So in line 4, we're going to want to use that to be an I dot account number. Yep. And then an I dot account created date. And then I dot email address. Which could come from the contact as well. Maybe better to come from the contact, but for now, we'll just go with that. Let's hit run. ID, valid column name, ID, CID, subscriber key, I I.id. Okay, so I.id. Huh. Hmm. Let's go back to the Unified Bootcamp. Yeah, that data action. Let's just see if they're. Okay, we did not include the ID in this segment. That's fine. So we can just remove that. Let's, yep, so you can remove line 3. That was only in the non-unified. All right, let's hit run again. Okay. So this is, this is our data that we're looking at here. We've got a, we've got data that is showing the subscriber key and the account number and the account created date. And it's nulling out the subscriber key, which is interesting on that left join, why that left join isn't working as expected. It should output out that subscriber key. Let's see, ei.email address is not null. Oh, I know why.
Oh, without the
It's
comma.
because we're not using.
No.
Yeah, it's yeah. So if you change if you change line 2, yeah, we have to do a case statement on this. Let's change line 9 to just a join for right now. And let's run this. What this is going to do is it's going to create a database of records where they're only in both your unified segment and in the contact segment. So this removes some of those subscribers that didn't have a contact ID as a subscriber key. So that helps clean up our list a little bit. I think I think we had about 23 records in the database. And so I think it was 43. This cleans it up a little bit. And then this would be what we'll probably use in our next segment our next session to feed into the journey. So we've got a subscriber key, which is a contact ID. We could spend a little bit more time. What we could do is use a case statement to say that if the subscriber key value begins with a 003, then we're going to use the contact ID. But if it doesn't begin with a 003, then we're going to use the ununified subscriber key, just so that we could actually send to those records that don't have a match. But this sort of cleans up our data a little bit, and hopefully that was a helpful exercise on how you can use the data and marketing cloud to do a little bit more unification and cleaning up your data when it comes in from Data Cloud. Let's say I've got a question in the channel. Is it better to use the first name and email address in the contact? Yeah, it's a good question. And it all really depends on your data. Probably, if we were going to use the subscriber key from the contact ID, we probably would want to use the email address. It all really depends on what's the most accurate. Depends on your environment. That's a really good question. Any other questions? That's right, Lakshmi. Yeah, a 1-hour interval. Sounds like that's the maximum amount of time. So, okay, fantastic. Well, Debbie, great job in Query Studio. Nice job building out those queries. Hopefully we'll have you back again for another builder. Okay, so in the sync contact DE ID shouldn't be null, am I correct? Absolutely. The contact ID will not be null on the SyncDE. Yeah, it'll always be populated. That is correct. Okay, well, we'll see you next time. Next time, we'll look to bring this data into a journey, personalize the email based on these data points, and actually send emails. Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank you,
much.
Debbie. Thanks, everybody. Great job. We'll see y'all next
Thank
week.
you. That's great.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone, bye.